Good morning, CUT. Y'all, thank you, Q. He said happy anniversary. It made 5 years, April 1st, right? Talk about an April Fool's joke. Yeah, thank you. I love what I do. I'm so grateful that God sees further than I do. Yeah, I'm grateful for that. I don't want to get off track though. I'm excited. I'm excited this morning because this morning we have what I consider to be an old friend revisiting us. And the old friend on this morning comes in the form of a sermon series that we teach, but I don't think we've taught it since maybe the early 2000s. It's Guidelines for a Master. Anybody remember Guidelines for a Master? Make some noise if you remember Guidelines for a Master. And what Guidelines for a Master does is help to lay out the roadmap for how it is we cannot try to attain something that we don't have. Understand that the master and the master teacher is resident within the soul of each of us. But I think we wisely and correctly point out that the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. And so you can be a master with a master's degree and a master card and forget all about the master that you are. Don't get it twisted. Just because you are a master don't mean that you behave like a master. You can be a master and be prepared or destined to assume the highest place, but if you and I don't honor and own and develop who we are and whose we are, then the master, just like the prodigal son, can go from the palace to the pig pen. It doesn't take a whole lot to be taken from the perch of mastery down into the depths of discovery. And so when we talk about a master, remember that a master is one who has dominion over the human self. Say human self. As a master is one who has dominion over the human self. A master is one who has accepted the mission to bring God's will into manifestation for their life and for the spaces wherein they find themselves occupied. A master's path to awareness, through the master's experience, we recognize that the soul, say the soul, the soul has to be purified of every sense of separation, and those sense of separation must be healed. Understand that fear does not really truly exist for the master. And so when fear does not exist, there is nothing that can interfere with the unfolding of God's divine plan for the master. The very presence of a master is a healing one. And this presence lifts not only the master, but everyone who comes into contact with it. But for many of us, the experience of mastery is often interrupted when we find that we have been insulted by a friend, forsaken by a lover, attacked by an enemy, or wronged by any other means. And if you are like most other people, when you have been insulted, forsaken, or attacked, our motivation is often to either avoid or seek revenge. Can I get an amen? But I'm here to tell you today that the master recognizes that revenge is not the answer. A master recognizes that in order to truly walk in the path of mastery, we must forgive those who insult, forsake, attack, wrong, talk about, belittle, give a hard time, offend, curse out, abuse, misuse, or otherwise make a transgression against us. And so the first step to mastery is the step of forgiveness. Say forgiveness. Your insert says, let's take this together, that forgiveness is an opportunity to experience significant healing. Let's take it together. Forgiveness is an opportunity to experience significant healing. In Matthew, Jesus says, for if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you your trespasses. As Reverend Fred really sort of alluded to earlier, in order for you to be forgiven, you have to first do some forgiving. I submit to you that one of the largest obstacles standing in the way of many, if not most or all of us, is the unwillingness or inability to forgive the transgressions that we think we have experienced. But it is really through forgiveness that true spiritual healing is accomplished. See, forgiveness reminds us that we are loved and that this love is so vast that we are truly incapable, say incapable, of holding ill feelings toward anyone or anything. I'm going to say that again because I know you ducked, you missed that one. You are loved, not you are in love. Not that you know songs about love, not that you can define love, but you are love. And this love that you are is so vast, is so deep, is so wide that as a being of love and light, you are really, truly incapable of holding anything against anyone. So if we find ourselves, and when we find ourselves holding on to things that are keeping us from being loved, understand that we are out of our God mind. You are the essence of love, not the way you feel when the person you love walks in the room. You are the love that is the God expression and demonstration of love. When God called you forth out of millions of possibilities that existed, when mom and dad did whatever it was they decided to do, there was no mistaking about how it was that God crafted you out of the seed and the egg when so many other possibilities were available. God knew that you, as the presence of love, was needed on the earth at this time so that God's idea of love could be manifested wherever you find yourself. Someone once said that forgiveness does not excuse the behavior. It prevents the behavior from destroying your heart. Forgiveness removes the errors of the mind that emerge as a result of the assumptions that we make about our being incomplete. You want me to say that again? Forgiveness helps us remove the assumptions that we make, and we assume from this assumption that we are somehow incomplete. Can I tell you why people sometimes show up in your life to show out? People sometimes show up in our lives, and when they show up, they show out not because of them, but because there is this sense, this assumption, this presupposition that we've made that we are somehow incomplete or separate from that which we truly are. And so people push and press and they prod and they poke so that they can get to the vulnerable spots that we find ourselves harboring when we think that we are complete, but we feel like we are incomplete. Sometimes people show up to help you find your true self. They don't mean to be mean to you, but they want you to forgive so that you can come to yourself. See, it's important that you forgive because anytime you make an appointment with someone, Anytime your soul sends out the mail to say, bring this experience to me, when we turn against the experience and make it about the other rather than accepting that we've called them for a particular reason, we miss the opportunity and the blessing that they bring to us. Nobody ever comes into your experience by chance, and nobody ever comes into your experience to hurt you. The truth of the matter is that you are loved so vast and deep that nobody can really hurt you. But if you feel and think, you convince yourself that you are human, then you open yourself up to human experiences and you miss the spiritual experience in the human exchange. See, forgiveness gives us an opportunity to reflect upon the assumption that you are incomplete. See, because it didn't work earlier, or because this marriage didn't work out, or because that relationship didn't work out, or because these friends treated you a certain kind of way, from these experiences, if we get it twisted, we take the wrong assumptions away from the experience. You should never assume yourself to be less than you truly are. It doesn't matter. See, this is why I like the prodigal son. Let me just go back to him for a minute, because even though he found himself separated from where he was supposed to be, it's only a matter of time before you come to yourself. And when you come to yourself, it doesn't matter where you have been or what your journey has been. Only thing that matters is that you come to yourself, forgive yourself, and get up out of the dirt. Stop eating down there. See, what I appreciate about the prodigal son is that he realized that not only was he a love so vast, but he had a father who loved him so deeply that once he got up and dusted himself off and shook that stuff off of his shoulders, he could now start making his way back home. Forgiveness gives us an opportunity to stop hanging out with the pigs. Not that there's anything wrong with the pigs, but why hang out there when you were meant to be here? So it's important to remember that healing is based upon mental cleansing. Say mental cleansing. Healing is based upon mental cleansing. When our soul is relieved from error thought, say error thought. When our soul is relieved from the error thought and the error feelings that we attach to, I really want to go slow right through here, my God. We attach meaning. We attach meaning to the insult. We attach meaning to the attack. We attach meaning to the affront. We attach meaning to the offense. And unfortunately, you have been created so wonderfully that you have the power to make something out of nothing. You're so bad with it, and I mean bad like good, or bad like isn't powerful. You're so powerful with it that you can take something that's really about somebody else and make it about you. See, the offense that somebody offers you is never about you. It might show you something about you, but it's not purely about you. Remember, you sent the invitation, and so they show up, but they show up out of their consciousness that's aligned with your consciousness. It's never solely about them. And so if we start trying to fix what they gave us, then we focus on what they gave rather than the cause of why they gave it. But understand that people can only bring to you stuff that's consistent with their soul. The stuff that they bring to you is about them. Don't make it about you. The part that is about you is the forgiveness piece. That's your part in their presence with you, the opportunity to forgive. Say forgive. See, the unwillingness or the perceived inability to forgive establishes barriers in the soul. My God. The unwillingness or the inability to give establishes barriers in the soul, and these barriers prevent or inhibit us from working with the life force. See, God really does need you to be in accord with what God is doing in your life, world, and affairs. See, God does not force the healing activity upon you. When you work outside of your conscious mind, it works naturally. See, when you sleep and your mind is not busy and your emotions are not riled, your body is healing itself. But the moment you wake up with last night's argument on your mind, it starts to impact your ability to let that activity flow. Someone shared a story with me not long ago about a good person, good true student who had just come through surgery, was doing well, tough surgery. And one of the children came to the church, to the hospital. And at the hospital, the child was busy with their own life. And the parent said, listen, I need you to be here for me right now, but the child was busy with their own life. Now the parent had just come through, excuse my vernacular, parent had just come through a hell of an experience on the other side of surgery successfully, but got caught up in what the child was doing and what the child didn't appear to be ready to provide. I got news for you. If nobody wants to give it to you, God's got it for you. Parent wound up getting upset. And because the experience was so fresh, parent wound up in a coma, seemingly reversing the effects of the healing experience that they just come through. See, there are healing elements to your decision to forgive. As the founder would say, nobody is so important that you ought to let them hold you down while you don't forgive them. See, unforgiveness requires you to stay in jail and bound with the person you're trying to keep down. Don't do it. Forgive them. Forgiveness enables me to remove the mental causes that I've been using as faulty information to navigate my soul. See, and whenever you have bad information, you're gonna make bad decisions. That's why they tell you don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. You ever been standing in line and start grabbing Mentos, Reese cups? You so hungry you start flipping through the magazine to see what you gonna fix? Forgiveness is the opportunity that we have to give principle for the pain. Forgiveness is the opportunity that we have to give truth for the trouble. Forgiveness is the opportunity that we have to give an affirmation for the anger. See, truth is unabashed when we are willing to forgive. The second point on our bulletin says the process of forgiveness involves releasing at the level of thought, emotion, and behavior. Is that right? Let me give you a real life example of someone who was able to do this. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years of his life in prison. 18 of those years in cell block B at Robbins Island. And why? Because he had the conviction to stand up for people. And I don't know about you, but that's enough to me in my mind. That's enough to make anybody angry, bitter, and fit to be tied. But when speaking about him, Bishop Desmond Tutu said that if Nelson Mandela and the people who were with him had not been able to demonstrate radical forgiveness, they never would have been able to begin the process of transforming South Africa. Look at this now. A whole country that's able to be transformed because people understand the power of forgiveness. I wonder what might happen in our communities and in our streets and on our blocks if we could summon the power to forgive. I wonder what might happen in our church if we could summon the power to forgive. I wonder what might happen in our relationships and in our marriages and in our friendships if we could truly, consistently summon the power to forgive. When you forgive yourself, you cease doing things that you should not do. I like Jesus. Watch this. Jesus says that we have the power to forgive sin. He said we have the power to forgive sin. But we know that sin is what? Missing the mark, falling short of divine perfection. If somebody in your experience has missed the mark, you can have the power to forgive. If you have missed the mark, let's start right there. We harbor resentments and fears and hurts and pains because we got it wrong. So what? You got it wrong. Get up and get moving. The only people who don't make mistakes are people who ain't trying nothing new. If you're trying to do something you haven't done before, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. Dust yourself off and keep it moving. True forgiveness is established through the releasing and the renewing of the mind and the body with thoughts and words of truth. If I had a saucer right here and I filled it with water, well, you can't really fill it that much. But if I had a saucer and a sponge and I put the sponge on the saucer, it would absorb the water. Is that right? Once it absorbed the water, I could bring another saucer with water on it and put the sponge on the saucer, and the sponge would absorb the water. Is that right? But I only have so many times to take that saucer full of water and that sponge and put it on that saucer before the capacity of the sponge has been satisfied and neutralized. Is that right? Now, after the sponge has been satisfied, it wouldn't matter if I put it in a bucket, a bowl, or a tub, it would not accept any more water. Is that right? Once it's full, it will accept no more. And it doesn't matter if I take the sponge with me to JCI class, it will accept no more. It doesn't matter if I bring the sponge to church with me, it will accept no more. The only time it will accept more is if I squeeze it. And once I squeeze it, I can then reclaim the power to absorb more. Is that right? So the key is its ability to its ability to absorb is found in its emptiness. But when it's full of it, whatever it is, when it's full of it, it cannot take anymore. What on this morning is your soul full of? What on this morning do you need to just squeeze out and forgive it and let it go, so that while you are in the midst of all of this good stuff, you can absorb more truth, you can absorb more power, you can absorb more understanding, you can absorb more power and ability to make your demonstration. Once it becomes full of it. When I forgive myself from the need to be right, resentful, a negative judge of others, and from patterns of destructive behavior, when I forgive, I free myself from the need to be right, resentful, a negative judge of others, and from patterns of destructive behavior. It's said this way in the scripture: an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But when you truly resign yourself and resolve yourself to forgiving, when you let it go, it's truly done. You don't bring it up every time a new argument arises. You don't remind the person of their transgression every time they make a mistake. If you have let it go and you've gotten over it, you don't have to remind anybody about what they've done. Just practice your power to forgive consistently. If you let it go, if you truly let it go, then let it go and move on. Don't keep bringing it up. Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. Don't keep bringing up the past. I'll love you forever. As you may understand, everything. Somebody's supposed to be praying. Somebody's supposed to be praying. Somebody make that metaphysical for me so we can be on truth. As you may understand. I don't even have time to be singing up here. I got one more point and stuff to cover. As you may understand. Everything. All right, I'm back. All right, last point, here we go. We can forgive rather than retaliate when we commit and take steps, these 4 steps: step to self-discovery, step to make the decision, a step to do it on the daily grind, and a step to spiritual deepening. When we talk about the step of self-discovery, we're talking about refusing or denying, we're talking about not denying that an issue exists and burying our head in the sands. When we're talking about self-discovery and soul discovery, we're talking about identifying the cause of the effect and not pretending like there is no cause that is attracting an effect. We want to make sure that we allow ourselves an opportunity to get free of the experience, but you cannot fix what you will not face. And so there is no need to run from your stuff. You can't run from yourself. If Teddy P was here, I'd call him and he'd say, you can't hide from yourself everywhere you go. There you are. We have to make a decision. The decision requires us to recognize the high rent that we pay for dwelling in the damage. Recognize the high rent that you pay for dwelling in the damage, and decide to forgive the anger, the resentment, the hostility, the hopelessness, anything that would keep you from expressing your God self as a spiritual being. Make a decision now to let it go. It has no power over you. And then it requires a daily grind. It requires practice, as it said in the DI. It requires practice. I like Peter. Peter rolled up on Jesus real smoothly like, Master, if somebody in the church offends me and gives me a hard time, how often should I forgive? I'm thinking that 7 times would be appropriate. And that's gotta be good, because generally I wouldn't forgive more than once or twice. If you burn me once, you burned with me forever. You never burn a bridge that you have to cross again. And I am Peter, and on this rock you will build your church. And so I don't really believe in forgiving too frequently, but 7 times, that's gotta be good. And Jesus says, well, not really. If someone offends you, you really need to forgive it 77 times, meaning what? Forgive it until that thing is no longer a block in your soul. Forgive it until when you think about it, it no longer irritates you. Forgive it and work with the construct of your soul until you are able to bless that person, that situation, that experience, and let it go and not feel any kind of way when you see them again. I don't have to go upside your head because I've already gone upside mine. I forgive you, I release you, and I let you go, and I place you in the loving care and keeping of God's good, but I won't let you keep my good from me. It's a daily process. It's a daily process. It's a daily process. It's a daily grind to forgive. It's a daily grind to forgive. But because you are spiritual, you have both the capacity and the ability to consistently let it go and let God. Remember, they came to bless you. And you don't want to fight against your blessing. It came to bless you. And then it requires a spiritual deepening. And this requires that forgiveness become a part of your spiritual practice. Let forgiveness become a part of your spiritual practice. If you have to go through the Rolodex, the mental and emotional Rolodex in your soul, and identify those people that you know you got a little bit of something against. You don't know why you don't like her, but you just don't. Don't leave me up here alone. I know I ain't the only one. I don't know. It's just something about him. It's just something about him, right? They walk in the room, it's just, oh. Never mind that you don't know him. You heard. I know. Forgiveness requires practice. And remember that our first work in any demonstration is to contact God. But also remember what Jesus advised us. Before you bring your best gift to the altar, if there is anything that you have or hold against your brother or sister, go and work that out because it impacts your ability to give your best. And so as we prepare to enter into this journey to reaffirming ourselves as masters, begin with the step of forgiveness. Let the grace and mercy that comes with forgiveness be your guide. It will bless you. It will bless your health. It will bless your experience. It will bless your life. It's time to no longer be full of it. It's time to let it go. God bless you.